All right.
I'm gonna go ahead
Okay.
and start the recording and I can change
Perfect.
the
And you can
names.
still monitoring people coming in.
Yep, I've
Well,
got it.
okay, great. Well, Casey is on the call and at the airport, so I'm sure she will jump in. But I'm Katie Delasto, Coach Katie, success coach, EXP agent, and friend of Rick and Casey for over 15 years. And really just wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about how this coaching call came into existence. And I think a lot of us met Rick and a teaching and training. It was one of his favorite things to do was teaching and training. And he would give out his phone number and say, call me if you need anything. And people did. And so he was like, okay, got over in a good way, overwhelming to respond to all these questions. And a lot of times people are asking the same questions. So Rick started this free Friday coaching call. And it is the first and third Friday of the month. And Casey is going to be continuing to lead these calls going forward with mindset, skills, lots of different speakers coming on board. And so we want to honor Rick and his legacy of this coaching call and the support in the community, which is actually one of Rick's final talks was about community. And this coaching call absolutely represents that. So it is brand agnostic. So any agent of any brokerage, I know we have loan officers on this call. So, bring your friends because this is about our real estate community. And Glenn, I just wanted to thank you and the leadership team for the support of the Jiha family through the last several weeks. And it's just been incredible to see the community at EXP and particularly the leadership stepping up to support the Jiha family and our EXP family over the last few weeks. So wanted to make sure I thanked you for that as well. So thank you for that. And thank you for being on this call this morning and the Ask Glenn Anything show. So like, all right, here we go. So wanted just to let you know, we did have some questions that came in ahead of time. I'm going to be monitoring those and then Selena is going to be, Selena Galanis is the Chief Operating Officer of Empire Builders. Is that what is your title, Selena?
No, VP of Growth and Operations.
VP of Growth and Operations. She's the one who keeps all everything moving. So Selena is going to help with monitoring the chat. So go ahead and do that if you've got things in the chat. And so Glenn, we just wanted to, I guess, one of the questions that came in that I thought was actually really great to start a little bit is around who is your inspiration and why? Who inspires you?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to review any of the questions in advance, so these are going to be top of mind. But I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and that means that I've read tons of books on various entrepreneurs, but one of the formative books that I read was in the 80s, In Search of Excellence, by a couple authors, Tom Peters and Robert Waterman. And I still sort of use that as a operating ethos. Nothing worthwhile comes out of the formal planning process. That's one that I sort of think about often. Basically anything that gets done by a monomaniac on a mission, having a bias for action. These are all axioms from that book. So stick to the knitting, stick to what you're good at. So there's obviously business authors. My dad was an entrepreneur, so he started businesses. I learned from him two things. One, that growing businesses can be a great way to build something, but two, he ended up losing everything. So I actually lost. The second lesson was don't lose it once you've made it. So those are my lessons. My grandpa and my grandma, they were small business people, and so I got to see them sort of do their thing. But those are some basic influences. I think parents are obviously always an influence in life. and then there's a bunch of people along the way. I got really enamored with network marketing, starting when I was 17 years old. And I was involved in quite a number of companies over the years. I just yesterday, I'm in Edmonton. I'm leaving here in just an hour or so to fly back home. But there was a gentleman here, Terry Peranich, and I didn't realize it, but he was the #1, I think, Remax agent in the world for a period of time. He I was actually in his NSA group as a distributor back in the early 90s, which was kind of interesting just to think about how some top real estate agents, and I know obviously Rick and Casey were also involved in some companies as well, but entrepreneurs in that community tend to be very inspiring as well. And I think about just our comp model, which obviously is very kin to network marketing. When you show up in a company with a comp model that actually honors the people in the field, in our case, the agents show up differently. And so it's interesting how just the operating system of a company can really kind of change the trajectory of somebody's life just by being around positive people, and then the underlying tools in the system. So there's a lot of inspiration that I've had over the years from I've had mentors in that industry, which were amazing. But anyway, those are some quick wins.
That is awesome. Yeah, I guess you're going to get the rapid fire questions today. So, well, I love that one of the things you have talked about as founder and CEO of EXP Realty is you talked about the commitment to back to basics in this kind of a market for and what is this is one of the questions that came out that was great, is what is the most unused or untapped resource that most agents forget to go back to, or what's that basic sort of tool or tactic that most agents forget about that can really help them in a shifting market?
Yeah, well, I think there's two major parts to a real estate agent's business. There's more than that, but in the beginning, it's about marketing and then sales and the follow-up. And they say that, the real income's in the follow-up, just follow up. And I always say, keep the small promises, which is the promise to follow up. Keep the small promises to make the big deals. But I think there's always a need for agents to go back to just understanding the sales process, understanding what words mean, psychologically, like asking your client to sign a contract is probably not the right choice of words. Whereas, hey, let's tie this property up, and just need you to okay the paperwork. And there's subtle differences, but contract is scary. Okaying the paperwork is less scary. Tying up the property as opposed to buying the property, so understanding that type of thing. And so I think there's one of the basics is just make sure that you're actually studying the craft of sales and the psychology of what what moves people. I was a huge Tom Hopkins fan. Tom Hopkins, of course, is a good friend of EXP Realty, who actually own all of the rights to all of his materials for the real estate industry. We bought that a few years ago. We've been updating it and incorporating it in some of the stuff that we're doing internally. But he was one of the great sales trainers in terms of scripts and dialogues and how to follow up and all that type of stuff. And I think about those basics as being really key. I mean, if you can by getting the basics, instead of talking to 100 people and getting 2 people to do business with you, you can increase that to 5 or 10 out of 100, assuming I'm thinking maybe internet leads, which have a typically a fairly low close ratio. But if you actually sort of really think about what is it that the consumer wants. I had this two nights ago, we did a mastermind, and I talked about the my follow-up process, which is entirely different than about 99% of sales trainers out there. And somebody came up with instead of speed to lead, it's speed to value. Like, how quickly can you actually create value in the mind of the consumer? And if you do that, then you can build the loyalty and trust with them so that they actually want to use you. And I think about the idea that if you do the same thing, that do what everybody else is doing, you're going to get the same results. So you have to also think about, how do I create a unique selling proposition in the marketplace so that I stand out in some meaningful way in the minds of the people I'm trying to do business with, so that they ultimately want to do business with me. So I think it's, look at your, run your business as a business, learn the psychology of sales, learn marketing, and if you've got more time on your hands, which you likely do relative to being in front of clients, then use this time to really work on the business. 2009 was an interesting year for us in real estate. It was obviously a much slower market. And 2008, we came out of that. But the beauty of that is it gave us the space to actually build a new type of business, which ultimately became eXp Realty. And so when the market's slow, it's also a gift. So don't, if you're sort of trying to do more stuff to get deals in, which maybe that's fine. But you could also look at it as a gift to say, hey, how can I retool my business so when we get to the other side, I get an unfair share of the marketplace because I've actually done the work while the market was slow.
Agreed. This is the time to take over market share and to reinvent your business a little bit to become more of that. This is the market for professionals, right? This is where you're really looking at your business like a business. And yeah, I love that. Love that. And I think one of the things that a lot of agents asked, and it was asked here as well, is around mindset. And I think you were talking about that, like looking at this kind of a market as a gift. What are some other mindset shifts that you learned in 2009 and that you're like dusting those things off again? And as we're talking with agents to help them with mindset, there's a lot of agents that this is their first shifting market. So they, there's something that, what would you share as far as mindset?
Yeah, one thing, and it was a title of a book. I forget who the author was, and it was kind of a play on words, but it's a very, I believe this truly is true. Everything is figure outable. And the book Think and Grow Rich, the big part of it is the think part. Actually think about what it is that you're doing, and actually go deep and brainstorm it out. In a shifting market, it's going to favor those individuals that reinvent themselves. In 2009, 10, 11, I mean, the people that really did well were those that had figured out how to go after short sales. And they got a tremendous amount of the market, and that, till upwards of 2013, 2014, I think that they'd kind of run their course. But there were opportunities that showed up in a down market. And that's the thing that I think about, the idea that we're marketers, we're entrepreneurs, and maybe that's another phrase that, or another hat that you want to put on. I use this, I call it psychology tricks even on myself, which is, if you put the hat of an entrepreneur on, you'd say, as an entrepreneur, how would I solve this problem? Not as as a real estate salesperson, how would I solve this problem? How would I solve it as an entrepreneur? And you will have ideas that will pop up that will be different than if you're saying, how do I do more deals? And so, or another way is, how would Rick Jiha solve this problem? And immediately upon, uttering those words will emerge different ideas that would be anchored in the coaching and training and the persona that Rick is and was. And so just, how would, I mean, this is one of the reasons why we sometimes externalize, but we can sort of self-hypnotize ourselves to think like other people if we just give ourselves permission to think like them. And that it's really just kind of breaking our, a pattern interrupt, so to speak, of thinking like somebody else. How would Mark Cuban solve this? How would Elon Musk solve this? How would, Gwyneth Paltrow, so I'm just picking obviously people, or, or Coach Katie, how would she solve this? Just, ask yourself these questions, and you will come up with, oh yeah, they would probably do this. And then you can play that out and go, that's actually not a bad idea. Let's go with that and see if we can do that. So, we do have a huge amount of ability to ask questions of ourselves and actually get great feedback. And we're getting it from a trusted source. We're getting it from ourselves. A lot of times when we ask other people, we may not trust that, but we can trust that the information that we're getting from ourselves is in alignment with who we are.
I like that. You could come a bit come out of yourself. I mean, it's and you can, like, okay, what would Rick do? What would, Gwyneth Paltrow do? What would Elon Musk do? And then you start the creativity starts to happen. And I think that's the biggest shift in mindset. It sounds like what I'm hearing from you is creativity. Like, look at things differently. You once told me that you're more of a hacker. Like, hackers look at something and say, all right, how to make this better? What are some different ways of looking at something? And so having somebody, like, almost having a conversation with somebody else in your head is a really cool way to get creative on solutions. And so I think I love that. I absolutely love that. What do you, let's say, I'm gonna bring up one of your favorite topics. What is your favorite thing about artificial intelligence?
That in a couple years, you won't actually know during this conversation whether you're talking to me or my AI.
Wow, that's cool. So what is your favorite thing that you've done with AI recently?
We've well, I'll give you some things that done with AI. I mean, a lot of it's using really chat GPT stuff, but we built our, I basically asked chat GPT to write me the role and job description and hiring documents for the CFO. Obviously Jeff is resigned, I think, as of today, and so we're starting a CFO search. So went in and said, here's, for eXp World Holdings, holding company of eXp Realty, Success, and Virbela, we're looking for a new CFO. eXp is a publicly traded company. We'd like them to focus on AI. We'd like them to focus on translating net promoter score information into actionable insights for the company, and write me a job description. And it did. It was amazing. I prompted it a couple more times, and it's what we're using with the job search firm that's going to be actually going through all of that. So that's a recent one. A fun one was this was back before EXPCon, and you can go pull up this press release, but the marketing team was working on a press release for the Gracies when they were doing the self-defense class at EXPCon, and I'm sitting there. I'm sitting with Michael Valdez. We're flying. Figure where we're flying to, and the press release just was coming off really flat. What the marketing team had put together. So I just prompted ChatGPT again. It knows enough about the Gracies. It knows enough about eXp Realty and EXPCon that it literally wrote the press release as was ultimately published. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with it. One of the things I was talking about yesterday, because I did a talk on AI here in Edmonton, was, if as an agent, a lot of times your CRM follow-up campaigns, that especially, well, the stock ones that come out of any of the platforms are not you. Like they don't match, the audience quite that you're looking to address. It's very generic because it's written for basically every market and every type of real estate agent, every type of sort of client that might have hit the search on their on the website. But using ChatGPT, and I tested this out beforehand just to see if it would work. And I just asked me, hey, write me a 36 touch campaign for keeping in touch with my real estate sphere. I'm a real estate agent, and I actually used it, did it for Edmonton. I'm a real estate agent in Edmonton. Here's the types of clients I work with, and here's where these leads are coming from, and it built me an entire campaign for that. And then the idea was that you really just copy and paste. And ironically, I sat down with one of the top agents in Edmonton yesterday, and he said, I did exactly that. It took me 20 minutes to build an entire campaign, whereas previously it would take me 2 to 3 weeks to actually build that same campaign. So there's so much stuff that you can do just with ChatGPT, and then the stuff that's going to come down the pipe in the next couple of years is going to be crazy. Like I mentioned this as a prediction. I think that within 18 months, my prediction was 18 months. We'll see if I'm right, but in 18 months you'll be able to actually have AI write your real estate contracts and basically do the work that you're currently doing. So it'll pick the addendums, fill in all the blanks, put in all the prices, fill in title company information, fill in all the stuff, and send it out for signature. Whereas I don't know what the average time is today for an agent to put a contract together, but I remember it was taking me anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes to actually put a contract together, and you'll literally be able to put it together in like 2 minutes just from a voice prompt.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool. Well, okay, we got to set the timer to see if you're right. We'll have to check on that to find out about that as we move forward. All right, all right, here's a more personal question. What is the most interesting thing about you that most people don't know, that's not common knowledge?
What's something that is not common knowledge? Let's see. Well, I'm just not common knowledge. I ended up when I was like about 11 or 12 years old, went with the boys brigade, and we went hiking, and I ended up almost falling off the side of a mountain, but I ended up breaking my foot in 12 places, and I was in a cast for quite a while. And I was told I'd never be able to run again. Of course, I'm an avid runner, but that was my foot basically got crushed when I was 11 or 12 years old. So anyway, every once my foot will ache, but not enough to stop me from running. Wow.
Are you a marathon runner?
I've run 2 marathons, yeah, and I've set my calendar to run a marathon when I'm 90. So I got to keep these legs moving.
I like it. I like it. All right, so that's awesome. That's a great story. And I think we've got about 5 more minutes left. And you had mentioned a couple of books, and I think that are there any books that you read more than once that you would recommend for business owners, real estate agents, that would really help them in this market?
Well, Robert Cialdini, Influence of Psychology of Persuasion, is an amazing book. If you haven't read that, it's just it will rock your world. The E-Myth Revisited is still a great book. Michael Gerber, written quite a number of years ago. I've read that quite a number of times. I think 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, classic, read it multiple times. The formative books like Think and Grow Rich, read that a number of times. How to Win Friends and Influence People, read that a bunch of times. Probably need to go back and reread both of those books and some other Napoleon Hill stuff. But I think about I love a lot of the books that were very formative for me had to do with just personal psychology, and Power of the Subconscious Mind, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, the Magic of Thinking Big. These were all books that I read multiple times when I was younger. But I think they're important books when you think about mindset. The idea is that we have to figure out a way to counter the external world as we are influenced by it, and one of the best ways is books, podcasts, audiobooks, all of that stuff is important because if you're like most people, you also are surfing Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever, and there's a lot of stuff that comes your way that is all designed to take us out of our game, and for whatever reason, some people who I respect in many ways, they're posting things which is not healthy for them or for the people that read it. From a political standpoint, and how the world's going to hell in a handbasket, all that stuff. The world's going to do whatever the world's going to do, but we can control what takes place between our 2 ears, and we can be a positive influence, to those around us. And from my perspective, those are the types of books that are the most valuable to read and reread.
Agreed. I think we have time for one question. I saw Will, you have your hand raised. Will
Glenn,
Higgins.
what's up, man?
Hey, Will.
How you doing, man?
Good.
My question is about the solo agent. As all the marketing, the Zillow, as a solo agent, you have to do so much to stay relevant, right? And then we have all the commission talk. What's the future of the solo agent in your eyes?
Well, it's like anything else. Everybody starts as a solo agent. The challenge is it really comes down to a couple things. What is it that what's the goal of the solo agent? Is it to just list and sell property? Whether it be 10, 20. Actually, yesterday I met a solo agent, number one agent in Edmonton. She sold 200 properties with only one assistant last year, and she's been the top agent in Edmonton, maybe the top agent anyway, it might be with the top solo agent in RE/MAX in general in Canada, for multiple years in a row. It kind of blew me away, but I think you have to be really clear on what it is that what you want to do as a solo agent. If a solo agent is kind of stuck in no man's land in some respects, because they're kind of in this mode that the business really owns them, and if they're not out there listing and selling real estate. But for some agents, that's great. They're taking that money, they're putting it in investments, maybe they're doing some agent attraction. It serves their needs. But I think you have to figure out, what is the bigger goal that being a solo agent is, and then beyond that, I think that's the first question. What is it that you're trying to do as a solo agent? And then take the time to actually build your business plan to support you. One of my favorite phrases I heard from Don Hobbs back in 2008, or I think it was 2008. or 2007, 2008, was the purpose of a business is to serve the needs of the owner. And as a real estate agent, solo agent, you still have a business, and you have to figure out, is the business serving you or are you serving the business? And you need to figure out, how to do that. And I think that means really getting clear on why you're in the business, and then what you're wanting to do with that business. Otherwise, you kind of, you may end up being in sort of that, no man's land and getting kind of burnt out. But that's where EXP comes in.
Love it. I love it. Well, I know, Casey, are you available? Take yourself off mute. Casey?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I know Glenn, you've got to jump. Katie, you've got to jump, and we normally allow an hour for this call. However, we're going to have a shorter one today. I wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, Glenn. As we were at EXPCon and walking around, people that were there for the first time was like, is that the founder of EXP? He's in the halls and he's talking with people. And here you are in a baseball cap and a sweatshirt today. And one of the things I respect and admire about you so much is that you are of the people, with the people, for the people, and you have a servant's heart, and you're absolutely committed to continuing a growth mindset, and are more brilliant than anyone on this call probably actually realizes, yet never use that in a way to hold it over people or in a way that anyone else would feel less than or small. And so I want to thank you for your time today, for who you are as a man and as a leader and as a friend, somebody that jumped on a plane to come celebrate Rick's life and had his, team with him to do that. And I really appreciate who you are, and thank you for the contribution and the difference that you continue to make in my life and countless other people's.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Casey, and thank you everyone. And yes, I do have to go run and catch a plane myself. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you
so
Thanks,
much.
Glenn.
We
For those-
appreciate you.
For those of you still on the call, our next Free Friday coaching call is December 15th, same time. We plan on having special guests every time we run this going forward, and continuing the legacy of what Rick built, and carrying that forward. So don't miss that. It's the same link, always easy, freefridaycoachingcall.com. Hope to see you guys going forward. Okay, don't miss them. Thanks so much for joining today, guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Have a great
Bye.
Friday.
Thank you.